Good afternoon, everyone, and today we're here with a special guest, Benedict Arnold. So, can you tell me a little bit about your childhood and upbringing?
I am the sixth Benedict Arnold. I was born January 14th, 1741, in Norwich, Connecticut. I was one of 5 children, becoming the oldest to my 3 sisters when my brother died as an infant. Several years later, I lost 2 of my remaining siblings to the yellow fever. I did not handle this tragedy well and became quite the troublemaker. I had a hard childhood, being pulled out of school and forced to work after the incarceration of my drunken father and later deaths of my parents.
Wow, that's sad. Oh, amazing. So, tell us about your wife.
When I met Margaret Mansfield, she was just 22 years old and I was only 26. She was quite the looker, but very shy. We married and had 3 sons, the 7th Benedict, Richard, and Henry. Our relationship was not easy due to my constant sailing trips for work. There were even several rumors of my unfaithfulness, none of which were true. We never really had the chance to work out our relationship because while I was away fighting for the cause, she died suddenly at the age of 30.
Oh, that's tragic. I wonder why. Well, what led you to join the army then?
After the French and Indian War ended in 1773, the British government decided to unfairly tax the colonists. I refused, so I became not only a tax protester, but an illegal smuggler of goods as well. My protesting made me somewhat of a local celebrity. That's when I realized I could restore my family name through the fight for American independence.
Oh, so this was kind of a popularity contest, I see.
Mm-hmm.
So, after the death of your wife, did you continue to fight for the American cause?
Yes, but not immediately.
Oh.
I had a terrible case of gout that kept me bedridden for weeks.
Oh my.
During this time, I learned that George Washington was named commander of the Continental Army, and I figured he must be planning an invasion of Canada in order to take down the British bases. I spent my time studying up on all the possible routes to Canada so that when I was better, I could meet with George Washington myself. Washington actually agreed to meet me solely based on my reputation, and I convinced him to let me lead over 1,000 men on a secret mission to Quebec through the Kennebec River.
Wow, that's amazing. What problems did you encounter on this mission?
The main problem we encountered was the Chaudière River. It was suicide to travel this river unscouted, but we had no choice. Me and 15 other men climbed into 4 boats and were immediately swept into the current. 3 boats flipped, sending men and supplies tumbling downstream, and 2 of those boats hit rocks and splintered as if hit by bombs. Luckily, nobody perished, but after a short break, we had to continue on. Since we were now 2 boats short, a few of the men were forced to walk. This was a disaster. But a few moments later, they called out, "Falls ahead!" and were able to save the remaining boats, supplies, and people from falling to their deaths.
Wow, that's amazing. What a disaster that saved your lives.
I know.
Did you ever make it to Quebec?
After marching through swamps, thick woods, and mountains, and carrying our boats through the falls, rapids, and over hills, we arrived in Saratoga, 70 miles from Quebec. Although our army was down to less than 600 men who were famished and disheveled, we were greeted in the streets by the entire town's population. After a few days of rest and food, our troops were looking much better. We continued on to Quebec, successfully arriving at our destination ready to fight.
Ooh, wow, amazing. Well, what happened next when you were in Quebec?
While in Quebec, I quickly realized that we were far outnumbered and that we would not be able to take on a city in our current state. I had no choice but to join forces with General Montgomery. He provided warm British uniforms to my men that he had taken from Montreal. Montgomery and I knew that our chances were slim, so we devised a plan to attack the city during a stormy night, using the snow as cover. On December 30th, the weather was in our favor, and we decided to attack at midnight. To ensure my men were not confused with the British Army, we stuck pieces of paper in our hats. On them we wrote, "Give me liberty or give me death." General Montgomery did not survive the attack, and we suffered a major loss that caused all our healthy men to be taken prisoner.
Oh no, what a powerful message you gave with the liberty and death hats. After those events, did you just give up on conquering Quebec, or?
Well, during the first failed attempt to take control of Quebec, I injured my leg. Congress sent John Thomas to take command of Quebec so that I could be taken to Montreal for rest and recover. I had no chance but to leave General Thomas with a camp full of extremely sick and exhausted soldiers. Soon after arriving, Thomas caught smallpox as well, and had to call off any plans of attack in the near future. It was around early May when American guards spotted approaching British ships. This sparked a nightmarish retreat. American soldiers raced along the riverbanks in chaotic crowds towards Montreal while being chased by British warships. I saw all the panicked troops running south and knew that they didn't have enough supplies for the long retreat. I seized food, blankets, and clothing from merchants leaving behind IOUs. I was the last out of the city, making sure to destroy anything of value. We loaded the sick onto boats and raced out, knowing a massive British attack was close behind.
How scary. That must have been terrifying. Well, what became of your soldiers when the British chased them out of Quebec?
It was early July by the time my leg was healed, and it was enough to use. I set out for Crown Point to evaluate the situation and renew my title of commander. The situation was not looking good. The men were weakened and very unhealthy. After hearing other commanders discussing British plans to build warships, I saw my opportunity to jump in with my drawings for ships of our own. The other commanders seemed more than happy for me to lead the building of America's first naval fleet. While this work was underway, an officer from Philadelphia brought a paper called the Declaration of Independence. It was asking for our freedom and independence from Britain, which was the perfect motivator for our soldiers. By the time the building was concluded, we were not looking like we could face the British fleet and come out of it alive. I had a plan, though, so we tried anyway. The plan backfired, and we had to cleverly retreat late into the night. Again, we made it out alive, just a little bruised and battered.
That's almost impossible odds you had there, and you still made it out.
Oh,
Well, after your third defeat from British, were you gonna give up or try again?
After a few more failed attempts to fight and win against the British, Congress began to question my promotion to general. I decided to go talk to Congress myself and appeal for my position. They voted, and as a thanks for my effort, they gave me nothing but a dumb old horse. I tried continuously to change their minds, but to no avail, so I resigned from the army.
Oh, well, that's one way to make a statement. Well, what did you do now?
Haha! Ironically, the day after my resignation, General Washington wrote for my help. After his pleading with Congress, I decided to put aside my resignation to help out my old pal Washington. He thought I was needed to help the Northern Army. I agreed the siege to Fort Starwicks, but I used my wits to trick the British and didn't even have to fight at all. Although Fort Stanwix was safe enough for the British, were continued their assault on the American army. As they impeded on Saratoga, we prepared for another battle.
Well, George Washington's a pretty important man, and he came looking for you, so what's your history with him?
Washington was always a good friend of mine. He was able to talk me out of making stupid decisions and calm me down when my temper took control. He gave me many wonderful military opportunities and brought me out of resignation. The best thing about Washington was that he was always believed in me, even when the rest of the world was against me.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, what happened with the Battle of Saratoga?
During planning for the Battle of Saratoga, General Gates was being a pain in the butt. He was excluding me from all the meetings, and I wasn't allowed to fight at all. I made a last-minute decision to run into the thickest of the fight. With a good plan in my mind and using my reckless behavior to my advantage, I led my men toward gunfire and through the forest.
Oh my goodness.
After getting blown backward a few times, we climbed into trees and picked off British officers. At this point, both armies were in it to conquer or die. I was doing so well when up came stupid Gates pulling me from another fight again. I refused and ran into battle. This is when I suffered another major injury to my leg, causing me to be taken away to Albany. Without me, the American army barely won the Battle of Saratoga.
Wow, that's awful. Well, what was your plan for the Battle of Saratoga?
We made a map that showed a simple diagram of our routines and surroundings. The American camp and Gates headquarters is our starting point. My attacks leap straight out from the American camp and then split into 3 smaller attacks. We are aiming a little bit to the left of Burgoyne's headquarters and move direct on Freeman's farm. This will help us to gradually weaken the army and also prevent us from losing too many troops.
Ooh, what a smart plan. Wow. Well, what happened between you and General Gates that made such a big fight?
I never got along with General Gates. Our strategies, values, upbringings, and opinions completely different at all times. We had many fights and would do anything to get under each other's skin. In my opinion, he was an awful commander whose calls made no sense.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, I guess. What happened to your leg?
Like I said earlier, during my first attempt to take control of Quebec, my leg was shot. I spent many painful months recovering just to get the same leg majorly damaged again. When I was first examined, the doctor insisted the only thing he could do was take the leg off. I had muscle and tissue damage, along with a huge fracture, but I refused to lose my leg. That night, they would place my leg in a wooden box, hoping that over time I would be able to use it again. It never fully healed because when in the wooden box, my muscle shrunk over 2 inches.
What?
Now, I get specially made shoes with platforms to even my legs out, and I use a cane to walk.
Wow, I can't believe they let you keep your leg. Did America or Britain win in the end? Like, after the war was over, what was your life like?
On October 17th, the British were finally forced to surrender. After the war had ended, I missed everything I had to give up to fight in. So I started to make secret deals with merchant who had tons of valuable merchandise. We would sell his goods to the highest bidder, and I would get a large share of the profits. My private dealings were technically not illegal, but because of the shops were so close, and the army did not immediately need the things I bought with my new fortune, it was considered ethically questionable. The wealthy lifestyle I chose to live was earning me plenty of enemies. I wouldn't stop, though. I enjoyed the way I was living and the attention I got from it, too much to tone myself down. One day, a newspaper was brought to me listing several charges the council had against me. I went to court and pleaded my case. In the end, all the charges were dropped.
Well, sometimes when people get jealous, they just create stories. Well, what was the best part of your new life?
The best part of my extravagant lifestyle was meeting my second wife, Peggy Shippen, out at a fancy ball. She definitely played hard to get it for a while, but many love letters later, she couldn't refuse me anymore. We fell farther in love and got married on the night of April 8th. I sold my home, and we bought a house together. Soon after that, we had a child and named him Edward.
Oh, how cute. What a nice name. So, what were your plans for the future?
Peggy and I spent a lot of time locked away trying to figure this out. Eventually, I got into contact with General John Andre of the British Army. I told him I would be completely loyal to him in his efforts to defeat America. I devised a plan and a secret messaging system. Once I took over West Point, he came to visit me and collect some papers. Unfortunately, on his way back to Britain, he was caught and taken in for spying.
Wow. Well, what was West Point?
West Point was our main base. It was vital to American warfare that West Point was run correctly and efficiently at all times. Taking over West Point was the most important part of the plan because it made it easier to meet with Andre. It also allowed me to weaken the defenses of America for a British attack.
Wow, I can't believe you would commit treason on America like that. What happened to Andre and your plan to commit treason on America after he was caught spying?
Unfortunately, my good friend John Andre was sentenced to a hanging. He pleaded himself to court and was found guilty, but took it with the greatest of honor. As for my plan, the very second I heard Andre was caught with my papers, I set off to the British territory. My beautiful Teggy was an amazing actress and played herself completely innocent. She was taken back to live at her father's house until it was safe enough for her to escape out to live with me in my new home.
Wow, that's some story you got there. What happened in America once you left? Did you ever try to go back?
My betrayal created riots and furious acts against my name in America. It took everyone quite a while to really calm down. But no, I never so much glanced back at what my life used to be. Peggy and I have found ourselves perfectly good new life here in London. Peggy died of cancer in 1804 when she was 44 years old.
So young.
And I may or may not have died on June 14th, 1801, when I was 60 years old.
Wow. So, as I've seen it, you've become a pretty famous character in history. I heard there was an even biography written about you. I think we have a copy here.
Yes, I have certainly put my stamp in history. Steve Shankin wrote a biography about my life detailing the important aspects. It's quite an entertaining read. But of course, if you don't have the time to read the whole book, you can reference the table of contents, which basically shows the outline of my time here on Earth. Each chapter even includes the dates that each adventure takes place.
Wow. Do you feel Steve Shankin has done a good job capturing your life in this book?
Yes, you can tell simply by looking at the source notes section in the back of the book. Haha, that man certainly did his research. He was so obsessed with my crazy adventures, he even spent weekends and vacations visiting and traveling the places I was at.
Wow.
He provided pages of books and resources if you ever wanted to read more about time in history. Or your favorite guy, me.
What was your favorite part about the book?
My favorite part of the book has got to be the cover. The artwork and the title really grabs the reader's attention. Not only does it feature an amazing action shot of me, but the caption really says it all. The most infamous villain in American history was also one of its greatest heroes.